It all begins in the middle of a massive thunderstorm, with lightning striking the mountains. At that moment, a man with multiple swords pierced through his body charges through the air against a giant beast. The warrior attacks with everything he has, using magical talismans to try and pierce the monster. The beast, covered in red lightning, unleashes all of its fury. With the impact of the strike, the weapon shatters into pieces. The battered warrior finds it unbelievable and lets out an ironic laugh. He mentions he never thought he would be laughing in a situation like this and celebrates having pulled it off. The beast was only 1 year away from finally becoming a dragon. The creature mourns that its dream was so close to coming true before this battle. It had lived as a spiritual being for almost 1,000 years, waiting for this exact moment. Indignant, the monster realizes they brought spells crafted specifically to eliminate divine beasts. Furious, it questions why they hold such a deep grudge against it. But the warrior simply calls it a fool and charges forward once again. The beast falls defeated to the ground and asks what the man gained from all of this. Already out of strength, the human replies that he does not care about gains as he merely paid off the debt he owed to his benefactor. Looking up at the sky, the warrior wonders if it is finally all over. As the beast takes its final breaths, it asks for the name of the one who brought it down. However, the creature loses consciousness before hearing any answer. A massive explosion consumes the area, destroying everything around it. The beast's soul floats in the darkness, mourning if its destiny was to fade away for nothing. Suddenly, a tapping sound begins to echo through the void, catching its attention. The monster opens its eye in surprise and wonders if it is still around. It feels its heartbeat and notices that its energy is gone, but there is still some strength left. Looking around, the creature does not recognize the place and thinks it is trapped. Angrily, it questions if they thought its body would just submit just because its energy was sealed away. So, it decides to use all of its remaining strength to break that seal once and for all. The effort pays off, shattering the barrier that held it captive. Completely exhausted, it realizes there is not a single drop of energy left in its body. Upon lifting its head, it is amazed by the new environment and wonders where it ended up. Right off the bat, it notices the place is filled with extraordinary items and treasures. The monster gets curious to know who owns a place with so much hoarded wealth. Looking closer, it spots a stone in the middle of the offerings and notices something written on it. The inscription said it was for a child who never got to see the light of the world. The text wished them happiness, making it clear that this was a baby's resting place. Reading this, the creature concludes that the space was made for that child to rest peacefully. It decides that the least it can do is recite a mantra out of respect. But upon moving, it feels something strange and soft. Confused, it touches its own face, trying to understand what is wrong with its texture. It is shocked when it looks down and sees that its arms are tiny. Furthermore, it notices that its belly is round and chubby. Unable to believe its eyes, it tries to understand what happened to its formerly imposing shape. Upon seeing its reflection in a gold coin, it realizes it has turned into a little critter. Freaking out, it bites its own arm, thinking this cannot be real. Accepting the harsh reality, it concludes that this must be human reincarnation. Even without fully grasping the situation, it knows it needs to keep moving forward. Sighing, the little dragon decides to focus only on what it can do right now and look for something useful. He finds a sacred sword and other treasures, thinking the owner's taste is quite peculiar. Next, he bumps into a shield with a petrification hex and finds the trap super cliché. Soon he finds another item that causes eternal hunger, tossing it aside for being way too basic. He evaluates a potion that trades your voice for legs and mocks it, saying that is not even a real jinx. Intrigued, he questions why such a brightly lit place only has gloomy and cursed items. Then, he notices a tiny shiny gem and gets closer to check it out. The little dragon looks up to see where that stone had fallen from. He is mesmerized to see a gigantic chest glowing at the top of the coin mountain. The absurd amount of gold forms a truly dazzling mountain right in front of him. Thrilled with the discovery, he celebrates that he just hit the jackpot. Holding a dark jewel, he notices it has a strong spiritual power embedded inside. The stone emits an energy very similar to what he used in his past life. Without a second thought, he decides he needs to take that item for himself. However, he tries to pull the jewel and complains that the chest's decoration is getting in the way. Pulling harder, he notices the stone starting to come loose from the structure. He uses his tiny paws to leverage against the chest, but the jewel does not give in so easily, making the little dragon sweat from frustration. Putting in one last extreme effort, he feels the item finally budge a little. Suddenly, the stone pops out all at once, throwing him backward. During the fall, he gets scared but swears not to let go of the treasure no matter what. His tiny body bounces clumsily down the steps of the coin mountain. Once on the ground, he rubs his aching head and complains that his old form would not even feel that tumble. But he is quickly relieved to see that the precious jewel is still intact in his paws. At that moment, blue lightning begins to crackle all over the treasure room. He feels an absurd pressure in the air and turns around to look. A spatial distortion forms, revealing that a powerful being is approaching. Stepping back, he admits that not even his old version would be guaranteed a win against this presence. However, his proud soul awakens, remembering that he carries the title of the Divine Black Dragon. Then, from the middle of the magical energy whirlwind, a person finally steps through the portal. The magical distortion intensifies and reveals the creature stepping out. The newcomer locks eyes directly on the tiny intruder. A massive golden dragon towers over the mountain of treasures, staring down at the little black hatchling. Planting his paws on the gold, the MC questions if the big guy is trying to suppress him with his aura. Confident in his own power, he warns that he is not going to lose this clash. Drawing in all of his gathered energy, the little guy tries to let out his most terrifying roar, but the golden beast just reacts with pure confusion at the hatchling. The grand roar comes out merely as a cute sneeze, leaving the former divine dragon confused by his own noise. He falls backward onto the gold, realizing the embarrassment, while the immense creature notices he is just a newborn. Bringing its snout closer, the golden beast mentions that the little creature is scared. Trembling and with tears in his eyes, the MC hears that he does not need to be afraid. Suddenly, a bright magical glow begins to wrap around the large dragon's body. The beast takes the form of a beautiful blonde woman and holds the hatchling, asking if this is better. Introducing herself as Christina, she leaves the little guy surprised to be given her name so suddenly. Sitting on the coins, the woman asks if he is okay and if he has eaten anything yet. The MC understands the question about hunger but remembers that in the past, he could go months without eating. However, his new body stomach growls loudly, catching Christina's attention. He is completely mortified by the absurd noise coming from his own belly. The sound keeps echoing, making him even more embarrassed about the situation. Watching this, the blonde decides to step in, seeing that the hatchling's instincts are taking over. She materializes a glass bottle while the little dragon wonders what she is plotting. Very carefully, the woman shakes the container filled with a white liquid. Then she takes the cap off, releasing the aroma into the air. The MC catches the scent immediately with his tiny snout. Drooling with craving, he realizes that it is fresh milk. The rumbling in his belly comes back hard, making him gulp dryly. Even so, his old pride makes him hesitate about whether he should really accept it. Christina gently tilts the bottle toward him, waiting for an answer. But seeing the delay, she starts pulling the glass away and says that if he does not want it, that is totally fine. Instantly, the hatchling panics at the sight of his meal walking away. In a quick jump, he grabs the bottle with both paws and starts chugging. Christina lets out a soft laugh, noticing that the little guy was truly starving. While drinking nonstop, he wonders how simple milk can taste. This is incredibly good. The flavor is so amazing that the little guy can barely breathe, completely focused on sucking down the liquid. The woman asks if it is yummy, and he feels deeply embarrassed for enjoying it so much. She stands up amidst the treasures and asks if the little dragon wants to come with her. Extending her hand, Christina formally invites him to follow her. The blonde promises that in the outside world, there are even more delicious and fun things to experience. The MC does not comprehend every single word, but he perfectly understands the invitation. Thinking fast, he concludes that she does not seem dangerous and this place only has useless gold anyway. Plus, he knows his current body is weak and it would be way too risky to try surviving without a guardian. He starts walking forward, clutching the black jewel, trying to convince himself that it is not because of the milk. Wobbly walking, the hatchling heads toward his new caretaker. Christina scoops him up affectionately and welcomes the little one. Rubbing her face against his, she confesses she thought he would not hatch and is grateful he is around. The little dragon notices the woman's sincerity, thanking the universe simply for his existence. She keeps talking about the child of prophecy, and he finds the whole situation a bit weird but nice. In his thoughts, the MC deduces that the original soul of this body must have already faded away. To lighten the mood, he holds out the little black jewel he had taken from the chest. Curious, Christina asks if it is a gift or if he wants her to hold on to it for him. The blonde hugs him tightly again, and he figures it is best if his guardian does not get depressed. Completely melting from the cuteness, she wonders how such a beautiful little creature was born to comfort her. Walking toward the treasure room's exit, the woman asks the little guy to take good care of her from now on. Looking back, the MC feels grateful for the chance to experience life again. Out of respect, he wishes that the hatchling's former soul finds peace in its next life. Now with a new goal, the former divine dragon swears he will not meet a pointless end like last time. Focusing on the future, he decides he will become strong enough and use absolutely anything to make it happen. Time skips forward, showing the baby sleeping cozily in a soft bed surrounded by jewels. Slowly, he stirs to open his big red eyes, waking up from a deep slumber. Stretching his tiny body, he lets out a long yawn to start the day. 1 month has already passed, and the MC sits on the bed, ready for his morning meditation. Initially, adapting to the tiny body was confusing, but he gradually got the hang of it. Concentrating, he notices that this body can gather energy straight into the heart without needing any techniques. At first, he found it weird, but after seeing Christina use magic, he understood it was the standard in this world. Thanks to this, he focuses all his effort on solely training his internal energy core. The environment he lives in now is a privileged place where the purest mana flows. On top of that, his newborn body holds 0 impurities, making the training incredibly effective. But even with so many perks, he admits he has one major grievance right now. Turning his head in annoyance, he glares at the root of his problem. The cause of his stress is a tiny guardian spirit that constantly floats around him. The little magical creature starts poking him non-stop, making him wonder if that thing ever sleeps. Christina was worried about leaving him alone, so she summoned this incredibly clingy helper. Because of this constant surveillance, the little dragon cannot do any physical training without being spotted. Whenever he tries to move faster or leave the rune, the fairy blocks his path. And to make matters worse, the spirit rushes to call the blonde, who promptly shows up scolding him and cutting off his freedom. Even with the interruptions, the hatchling notices that his internal energy keeps growing steadily. With his current level, he figures it is finally time to test his magical skills. With his back turned, the little guy plans to use teleportation magic to try and escape from there. However, he concludes it is way too early to try that until he gets rid of the guardian spirit. Dodging the fairy, the former dragon admits he needs to come up with a plan against it as soon as possible. Besides that obstacle, he also struggles with the pronunciation issue caused by his own vocal structure. He knows this speaking difficulty will only go away once his body fully matures. Suddenly, the spirit starts praising him, and the hatchling demands it to stop, feeling like he will pass out from embarrassment. Out of nowhere, the little guy feels a strong flow of mana approaching. Christina appears in the middle of the hall, asking if the baby has been behaving well. Immediately, the little dragon runs toward the woman, noticing that it is already mealtime. She asks if he missed her, while the little guy tries to play it cool, claiming he is only there for the food. The blonde wonders if he should just stick to milk and suggests meat, getting the hatchling excited. But the caretaker notes that his teeth have not grown in yet, making him open his mouth to prove he can chew. Christina praises the creature's intelligence, while he mentally brags about being a 1,000-year-old divine beast. Chill about it, the MC believes his acting worked perfectly since the guardian suspects absolutely nothing. The woman picks the hatchling up, thinking he wants a hug, but he just demands the milk. Even though he is annoyed, he accepts the affection, knowing that getting on her good side is a necessary task. Christina looks at the little guy with eyes full of tenderness and adoration. Hugging the little dragon, the blonde claims he is the cutest little creature in the whole world. Suddenly, she realizes she completely forgot it was mealtime. Grabbing the bottle, she offers the food while the little one agrees that this was exactly what he wanted. Gripping the bottle eagerly, he admits this is the sole reason he stoops to acting cute. While enjoying his meal in peace, the former divine dragon observes his caretaker. As usual, Christina sits next to him and starts chatting about her day. In the past, he never had the patience to listen to others talk since he had no friends. Although the woman does not know the baby understands everything, the little guy notices she likes to vent. Speaking freely about her own feelings allows the guardian to crack a much more relaxed smile. Thanks to these daily chats, he can already understand almost the entire language and has learned a lot about this world. Then the blonde calls him with the soft voice, catching his attention. Noticing the empty bottle, the woman realizes the hatchling chugged it all. Excited, Christina asks the little guy to do something cute, proving that this hospitality does not come for free. While wiping his mouth, the MC laments having lived 1,000 years as a divine beast only to end up like this. But swallowing his pride, he lets out an adorable little noise, accepting the humiliation in exchange for the milk. Mentally, the little dragon justifies the act, figuring it is only logical to return a favor received. The blonde squeezes the little creature, dying of cuteness, while he is just thankful she is satisfied. Being crushed by the affection, the former dragon remembers he cannot be rude to his own benefactor. Petting the baby, Christina wishes for him to have an incredibly wonderful and happy life. Hearing such sincere words, the MC is left speechless and acknowledges her genuine kindness. He admits the guardian is an extremely gentle and warm person who naturally radiates comfort. Since he never received this much affection in his previous life, the little guy has no clue how to return this feeling. This confusion reminds him of someone from his past who used to ask him similar things. In his memory, a fox girl questioned the warrior about his obsession with wanting to ascend. The former human listened to his companion ask if he was truly happy living solely for that goal. Annoyed by his silence, the fox called him an idiot, while the warrior replied that their paths were different. Poking her friend's head, the girl reaffirmed that this was exactly why he was an idiot. With a serious look, the celestial fox asked if the man had ever actually been happy. She stated that her companion did not know what it was like to be adored or what it meant to be genuinely loved. Focused on his own goal, he claimed he had no room in his heart for such trivial and unnecessary feelings. The human fired back, reminding her that his friend was also about to ascend, but remained attached to the mortal world. Without missing a beat, the young woman surprised the warrior, revealing she had decided to become a human. Seeing his shock, the fox broke into a huge smile, admitting it sounded crazy. Blushing, she confessed to having fallen for someone who accepted her even knowing her true nature. Walking around, the girl explained it would be only natural to return such immense love in the same way. Walking past her companion, the young woman wished that one day he would also come to understand that feeling. Teasing her friend, she doubted he would even notice if he found someone like that, while the warrior completely denied it. The human warned that becoming human would prevent her from returning to that realm, but chose not to ruin her joy. With a soft smile, he wished the fox a good life, and that she would receive all the love she sought. Surprised by the sudden sincerity, the girl felt embarrassed, not understanding that gentle expression. Turning his face, the man complained about her mumbling, demanding she speak up if she had something to say. Turning her back, the fox wished the warrior a good life and ran off. Pretending to be annoyed, the man watched his companion walk away while she yelled that she did not care about his words. But before disappearing, the girl flashed a sincere smile, thanking him for his support. Back in the present, the hatchling walks wobbly, understanding that he needs to return his guardian's affection. Entering the room, Christina can barely finish her sentence when she sees the scene right before her eyes. Shocked, the blonde drops her bag on the floor, while the MC decides that showing off his progress is the best thank you. Super thrilled, the woman gets emotional seeing that her baby is already managing to take his first steps. Proud of his own performance, the little guy hopes this demonstration will make the caretaker dismiss the guardian spirit. But the tears in Christina's eyes send the little dragon into a panic, thinking he made her cry from sadness. Without warning, the blonde rushes in and scoops the little creature up by surprise. Squeezing the hatchling tight, the woman screams in excitement over the cuteness, while he realizes she is just euphoric. Putting the little guy back down, the guardian remembers she almost forgot to give him a present. She starts digging through her bag, while the MC waits in anticipation, hoping it is food. The caretaker announces she brought something perfect for the baby to swallow, even without fully formed teeth. Holding a massive egg, the blonde reveals she brought a phoenix to feed her beloved hatchling. Inside the bag, the guardian reveals that it is in fact a phoenix egg. The item emits an intense glow from the bottom, showcasing an incredibly powerful aura. Being the immortal bird that repeats the cycle of passing and rebirth, the MC finds the description very similar to the vermilion bird from his old world. However, he knows very well that such a giant divine creature does not hatch from a simple egg. Even so, the little dragon flaps his paws in pure excitement, ready to devour the meal. Curious and starving, he gives the food a light tap to test its toughness. Next, the hatchling grabs the item, getting ready to take the first bite. While Christina watches, completely melting with love, the former dragon starts munching away with zero manners. As soon as he manages to break the shell, he finds an incredibly soft and juicy inside. Wasting no time, the little baby takes a massive bite out of that glowing yolk. Instantly, he is shocked to realize the flavor is absolutely out of this world. Relieved, the blonde mentions she roasted the dish with red dragon fire, worrying he might not like it. Ignoring her concern, the hatchling keeps devouring everything and notices a faint fire mana inside. Thinking the little animal is eating way too fast, the guardian offers some milk to wash it down. The little baby chugs the bottle eagerly, while the woman warns that a newborn's stomach is very sensitive. Going back to the main course, he enjoys the soft texture that slides easily down his throat. As soon as he finishes the first one, the MC already locks onto the next egg in the basket. But upon trying to bite it, he notices this specific one is oddly red and way harder than the previous one. Since he has plenty of other easy options available, he just shoves the item to the side, deciding to eat it later. After gobbling everything up, the hatchling falls backward with a stuffed belly, letting out a tiny burp of satisfaction. Rubbing his little tummy, Christina is impressed by his appetite and says she will go get more. With that, she covers him with a blanket, telling the little guy to rest right there. The former dragon lets out a long yawn, admitting he overate and that it is going to take a while to digest all of that. Slowly, the sleepiness hits hard and he starts drifting off. Within seconds, the little baby is completely fast asleep in his cozy basket. Sometime later, the little dragon's ear twitches, signaling the end of his nap. He snaps his red eyes open, snapping totally back to reality. Stretching his tiny body, the little guy gets out of bed and steps firmly onto the floor. Scratching his face, the MC sits up confused, trying to figure out if he snoozed for way too long. Noticing he is alone in the room, his attention is quickly drawn to a basket nearby. He notices the number of eggs has increased and deduces that Christina left more food there while he slept. Licking his lips, the hatchling feels completely refreshed from the nap and considers having a little extra snack. Stretching his tiny wings, he tries to convince himself that eating a little more right now will not hurt anybody. Walking happily to the basket, the former dragon swears his goal is merely to absorb the fire mana instead of pure gluttony. But as soon as his paws touch it, he feels a very familiar hard surface. The little baby jumps slightly, immediately recognizing the item's texture. To his surprise, it was that exact same tough red egg he had pushed aside earlier. Treating his meal like an opponent, the little guy focuses his energy, knowing that with nobody around, this is his golden opportunity. A dark and intense aura rapidly wraps around his front paw. Pulling his arm back, the MC gathers a massive amount of power into a single strike. With a swift motion, he delivers a heavy blow straight onto the red shell. The clash creates an explosion of magical energy that lights up the entire room. However, when the light fades, the hatchling is outraged to see the egg completely intact in the exact same spot. Being blown backward by the recoil of his own attack, he cannot wrap his head around how he failed to leave even a single scratch. Quickly, the little dragon spins midair and lands safely, ready for round 2. Panting, he realizes that cracking this shell is going to be way harder than he initially thought. Summoning even more dark mana, the former dragon admits he did not want to go this far just for a roasted dish. With a high leap, the little baby unleashes absolutely all the strength from his energy core, creating a storm around himself. The menacing shadow of the giant divine dragon from his past life appears behind him, reflecting his true power. A brutal beam of energy hits the target dead on, pressing the shell hard against the bedroom floor. Landing totally exhausted, the MC turns around, dying to confirm if his ultimate attack did the trick. Upon seeing the crack, he celebrates his own success, mentally bragging about being the strongest creature alive. Already up close to the shell, the hatchling gets ready to devour the dish that made him waste so much effort. But the second he peeks through the open hole, he jumps back, totally freaked out by what he sees. Suddenly, something pops out of the shell and smacks the dragon right on the snout. Completely frozen, he listens to the high-pitched chirps of the invader, unable to process the situation. To his absolute shock, a tiny, chubby white bird is sitting right in the middle of the broken shells. The former dragon points at the little creature in doubt, questioning if that thing is actually a bird. The newborn tilts its head and lets out a cute chirp as if greeting him. Desperate over the loss of his meal, the MC tries to figure out how roasted food turned into a living pet. While the little bird hops happily around him, the baby notices something off coming from it. The former dragon freezes in place the second he makes an obvious deduction about the situation. Looking closely, he notices the intruder is overflowing with an exact mix of his dark mana and pure fire energy. Right then, the hatchling realizes his full power attack was not repelled, but rather completely absorbed by the egg. Furious, the little guy concludes that all the power he painstakingly gathered went straight into the bird. Glaring at the bouncing avian, the MC deeply mourns the theft of his hard-earned cultivation progress. Unbothered by his frustration, the little creature steps up and affectionately rubs against the dragon's face. Seeking coziness, the tiny bird tucks itself under his neck, feeling entirely safe. Because of this weird closeness, he wonders if phoenixes are naturally born this docile. Suddenly, an epiphany strikes the former dragon as he focuses on the animal's behavioral details. Seeing the intense fixation from the little fluffball, he suspects it went through the primal instinct of imprinting. Remembering that beasts from his past acted like this, he decides to run a quick test to be sure. During his sprint from one side to the other, the hatchling notices the little creature tracks him flawlessly. Despite running in frantic circles trying to shake it off, the bird refuses to leave his side no matter what. Close to tears from sheer exhaustion, the MC finally accepts the fact that he just became this phoenix's mother figure. Utterly wiped out, the MC complains that his energy was drained in multiple ways and decides to catch some sleep. At that moment, the tiny phoenix flaps its wings, hovering in the air, while the shot former dragon asks if it already knows how to fly. Laying down on the spot, the little baby decides to ignore the mess for now and figure things out later since he is completely beat. Closing his eyes to sleep, the little guy notices the bird's voice slowly fading away. Right then, he realizes the tiny bird is about to cry. Seeing the tears falling, the hatchling panics, wondering if the animal is actually sobbing. Extremely annoyed, the MC finds it ridiculous that this clueless little creature is throwing a tantrum after causing him such a massive loss. Meanwhile, Christina hurries down the hallways, regretting having stayed out later than expected. Holding a basket full of roasted eggs, the guardian tries to rush, worried her baby must be starving. Arriving at the bedroom, the woman opens a door calling out for the little dragon. As soon as she walks in, she hears a noise and notices the shells on the floor, assuming he ate everything while waiting. However, the caretaker is completely taken aback by the scene right in front of her. Looking at the two on the bed, the guardian cannot wrap her head around what that weird animal is doing next to her hatchling. The former dragon is deeply asleep, all curled up, with the little bird nestled comfortably on his belly. Putting a hand to her face, Christina is stunned when it hits her that this might actually be a phoenix egg. Waking up to her presence, the tiny bird lets out a soft chirp. Curious, the guardian steps closer to the bed, wanting a better look at the animal. Analyzing the creature, the woman is blown away by the discovery. Sensing her approaching, the bird jumps, sparking a powerful red flame around itself. Showing off a mix of pure fire magic and dark power, the newborn displays absurd resilience for its age. Being a sacred firebird that travels through the garden of the gods, the scene felt incredibly majestic. To the guardian, seeing such a divine being protecting the last black dragon felt like destiny working in mysterious ways. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Christina figures it would not be right to force contact and decides to give the newborn some space. Suddenly, the phoenix jumps, startled by a movement on the bed. Rubbing his eyes, the MC finally wakes up from his nap, stretching his tiny body. Confused, the former dragon tries to ask the caretaker why a bird popped out of his roasted meal. While the tiny bird affectionately rubs against the hatchling, the woman brings up the theory that it might be the new phoenix of this era. Lost in thought, she explains that the normal cycle requires at least 100 years after the previous one's passing for a new birth to happen. With the MC watching the animal flap its wings, the caretaker finds the whole situation bizarre since the current phoenix should still be around. Faced with this anomaly, the Guardian wonders if this meeting of two hatchlings with opposing energies is some sort of sign from the world. Knowing she cannot just ignore this, the woman snaps her fingers and summons the Guardian spirit. Holding the tiny fairy, she announces she needs an urgent meeting with the elder of the Red Dragons for advice. Hyped up, the Guardian spirit promises to watch over everything while Christina thanks it for the valuable help. Turning to the baby, the Guardian affectionately asks if he can behave and stay out of trouble until she gets back. Throwing his paws in the air out of pure joy, the MC mentally celebrates his sweet taste of freedom. Despite her worries about leaving them alone, the blonde trusts that the little dragon will be perfectly fine. She knows full well that the former dragon is not just smart, but already shows signs of having his own solid morals. Unlike other hatchlings who use mana recklessly and completely out of control, he is vastly different. With extreme ease, the little creature can manipulate power precisely and intricately, doing exactly what he wants. Even already considering him a genius, the Guardian still harbors many doubts about the hatchling's true nature. Remembering the master who handed her the newborn, she wonders if something was done to the child before he was placed in her care. Shaking off the thoughts, the woman decides none of that matters and that she accepts him regardless of who he is. With a glowing smile, she reaffirms her role as a guardian and says goodbye, promising to return soon. Then, the little baby watches her leave, paying close attention when the blonde suddenly stops, remembering a detail. The caretaker mentions that the kid raised by the elder is also an incredibly talented genius. Therefore, she believes this skilled youngster could end up being a huge help in the MC's development. Leaving the room, the woman cheerfully suggests that in the future, the two might even become great friends. Handing over watch duty to the spirit, the Guardian asks the fairy to notify her immediately if anything unexpected happens. Squatting down to bed level, she warns the little dragon that he needs to stay right next to his magical nanny. Watching the woman, the former dragon gets annoyed, not understanding why the caretaker is still stalling instead of just leaving already. Completely smitten, Christina ignores the hatchling's impatience and starts squeezing his squishy cheeks. Unable to resist the cuteness, the blonde pulls the little baby into a crushing hug, rubbing her face against his with all her might. After the suffocating affection attack, the Guardian finally says goodbye, promising to be quick while the MC tries to catch his breath. With a peaceful smile, she steps out of the room, softly closing the door behind her. As soon as the sound of the latch echoes through the room, the MC's sharp ears pick up the absolute silence. Staring at the exit, the little guy wonders, full of hope, if the woman is finally gone for good. Sensing the perfect opportunity has arrived, he clenches his tiny paws, ready to seize the moment. Taking a massive leap off the bed, the former dragon shouts in joy, celebrating his long-awaited sweet freedom. Sticking a stylish landing, he makes it clear that rotting in that crib all day long is completely out of the question. Striding confidently, the hatchling complains that the Guardian's excessive rules kept him from even training properly. Ignoring the Guardian spirit hovering right next to him, the little guy decides to go for a stroll and explore the area around the nursery. While he walks, totally focused on his tour, the phoenix trails behind, letting out some happy chirps. Annoyed by the tag-along, the MC asks the bird to stop staring at him with those shiny, expectant eyes. Out of patience to deal with the animal, the baby lunges and grabs the little creature by the top of its head. With a swift motion, he tosses the phoenix over his shoulder, solving the problem in a very practical way. Feeling the little bird settle comfortably on his head, he figures giving it a ride is way better than having a pet tripping up his feet. Continuing his trek through the lavish room, the former dragon spots a brightly lit hallway that catches his eye. Arriving right in front of the main exit, the hatchling sizes up the doorknob's height and realizes he is going to need a solid jump to reach it. Crouching his tiny body, he focuses all his strength into his hind legs, totally ready to test his luck. Gathering momentum, the little guy takes a powerful leap, pushing off the floor with all the energy he can muster. Flying toward his target, the MC stretches his little arms, convinced his genius plan worked perfectly. However, upon grabbing the knob, the little baby quickly discovers that the bedroom door is locked completely tight from the outside. Landing safely, he glares at the floating fairy, finally understanding why it was so chill about his escape attempt. but refusing to be stopped that easily, the former dragon unleashes a wave of dark magic, proving he is no ordinary hatchling. Using the black energy with pinpoint precision, he unlocks the complex mechanism, clearing the way for his much-anticipated exploration. With a soft click, the double doors swing wide open, and the little baby hops out, celebrating that he finally cracked it. Already standing in the hallway, he ponders that the most important thing right now is finding out how the guardian fairy will react to this breakout. Seeing the little creature glow brightly, the former dragon fears it is about to snitch on him to the blonde. But to his surprise, the guardian spirit bows respectfully, leaving the hatchling totally puzzled by the situation. Noticing the magical being's submissive stance, he concludes with relief that he basically just got VIP permission to roam around. The little guy walks through the hall, finding this sudden helpful attitude incredibly suspicious, but decides to use it to his advantage. Wasting no more time, the MC picks up the pace, laser-focused on starting his grand tour of this mysterious place. Staring at the sheer scale of the building, he is blown away by everything he is managing to take in. Walking through the massive stone hall, the baby admits this place is way bigger than he ever could have imagined. Totally wiped out, the former dragon sits on the floor, realizing exactly why his guardian never bothered trying to lock him down. The hatchling deduces that due to his bite-sized stature, everyone just assumed he could not get very far on foot. Sprawled out on the fancy flooring, the little guy accepts that at this pace, he will never cover much ground unless he uses teleportation. Then a sly grin spreads across his face as he remembers he is luckily super prepared for exactly this kind of situation. Recalling his caretaker's power, the former dragon reveals he spent a lot of time closely analyzing the flow of that magic. Memorizing Christina's movements flawlessly, the baby focuses his dark mana, copying the exact same spatial technique. Feeling the magic pulse through the entire lair, the MC notices the surrounding energy responding to his commands flawlessly. With the power mastered, the hatchling looks around confidently as he decides where to warp to first. Smirking at the tiny fairy, he mentally dares it to try and snitch on this impressive escape to the guardian. The bird chirps excitedly as the former dragon jumps into the portal, warning the spirit that it is way too late now. In the blink of an eye, the spatial magic activates, swallowing the little guy whole and zapping him to a new spot instantly. Popping out on the other side, the baby appears in freefall right over a stunning mountain landscape. Taking in the natural scenery, the MC is in awe, confirming the outside world is exactly as he imagined. Comparing the environments, he admits this new world is vastly different from anything he experienced in his past. However, his deep reflection is rudely cut short when he realizes he is still plummeting fast toward the ground. Noticing the phoenix flapping its little wings above him, the former dragon appreciates the help, recalling he chose to spawn mid-air on purpose. Unfortunately, his math was a bit off, and the baby face plants into a rock, taking a painful hit against the dirt. Rubbing his bruised head, he grumbles about the lack of altitude, but is relieved he brought the bird and the fairy out safely. Looking over, the hatchling sees the guardian spirit spinning frantically in absolute panic over the situation. Not getting the freak out, the MC wonders why there is such a big fuss when the caretaker spams magic effortlessly. Right then, a doubt crosses his mind as he questions if this absurd ease with magic is standard for other hatchlings. Checking out the magical being's distressed state, the little guy deduces the blonde would never have left just one nanny if that were normal. Overcome with worry, the former dragon starts panicking, wondering if there is any way to undo this huge screw-up. Sweating cold, he tries to chill out, trying to figure out if pulling off a flawless teleport is really that mind-blowing. The hatchling connects the dots fast, confirming that if every newborn could do this, the security would be way tighter. Staring at the shell-shocked fairy, he finally grasps the colossal gravity of his little magic trick. Trying not to panic, the baby turns around, desperately trying to convince himself he can still perform some damage control. Gulping hard, the MC lets out a worried mumble, feeling the crushing weight of his own reckless actions. Soon, reality sets in and he realizes he openly flexed advanced magic right in front of the snitch spirit. Concluding that overthinking will not fix anything, the little guy notices the phoenix is acting weirdly quiet right under him. Lowering his head to check on the pet, the former dragon gets spooked when the tiny bird suddenly leaps forward. Taking advantage of the distraction, the baby decides to focus on what matters and starts sprinting to explore the unknown area. Running free through the green meadow, the hatchling happily chases the little bird and the fairy, feeling the cool breeze on his face. With an agile hop over a crystal-clear stream, the MC marvels at watching the fish swim in the shallows. Braving the dense forest, the former dragon balances across a fallen log, closely followed by his new crew. Finding a sunlit clearing, the little guy stretches his arms toward the sun, feeling incredibly relieved to finally be outdoors. Pushing the thick leaves aside with his paws, the hatchling pops his head out, letting out a tiny squeal of massive hype. The little bird hops right behind him as the MC is met with a breathtaking view of the giant mountain range. Hidden among the tall weeds, the baby analyzes the terrain, revealing he climbed the tree just to pinpoint his guardian's lair. Carefully scanning the sunlit peak, he manages to spot exactly where the luxury home he just ditched is located. Admiring the imposing structure, the former dragon admits he had never seen the outside of a real lair before. He notices that insane amounts of mana swirl around the area, proving the entire place is fused with nature. Satisfied with this big geographic discovery, the little guy turns around, feeling he has explored enough of the forest for now. Waving a paw at his crew, the MC decides it is the perfect time to start heading back. Looking at the fairy, the hatchling tries to cook up an excuse, lying that he never technically lost his guardian spirit despite the magic slip-up. Strutting with total pride, the little baby imagines that flexing this insane teleportation talent will pay off big time. Full of himself, he is dead sure the blonde will shower him with praise for his supposed wisdom and god-tier magic control. In his daydreams, the former dragon sees himself getting fed premium meals, fully believing the caretaker will fast-track him into actual training. Smiling confidently, the little guy just hopes he can keep his acting game strong to avoid raising any unwanted red flags with the woman. Strolling smoothly through the thick woods, he assumes everything is going to play out flawlessly with zero hiccups. But suddenly, the MC freezes dead in his tracks as his nose catches a wonderfully familiar scent hanging in the air. Sniffing the wind currents like crazy, the baby whips his head back and forth, desperate to track down where the smell is coming from. With his eyes glowing from intense hype, his pupils dilate as he perfectly recognizes the essence of that powerful aroma. Diving headfirst into a thorny bush without hesitating, the former dragon victoriously announces he finally found his grand prize. Right in front of him rests a super rare plant with red fruits, which the little guy instantly identifies as a heavenly seed. Drooling from pure starvation, the MC is hypnotized by the magical aura, confirming the item's energy is off the charts. Completely fixated on the delicacy, the hatchling calculates that swallowing that fruit is the key to getting a huge chunk of his original power back. Unable to fight the temptation, the baby reaches out his tiny paw, ready to yank the meal straight out of the dirt. But before he can even touch the prize, the guardian spirit darts in front with its arms wide open, totally blocking his path. Hovering protectively, the fairy wags its little finger in denial, making it crystal clear the little guy is strictly banned from eating that. Stepping back in anger, the former dragon grinds his teeth, absolutely livid at the audacity of this nanny trying to stop his lunch break. Annoyed by the block, the MC gets ready to push through, finding it incredibly frustrating to deal with this glowing roadblock. At that exact moment, the phoenix jumps in front, taking a protective stance with a fierce glare, defending its mother figure. In a ruthless sneak attack, the tiny bird drops the fairy flawlessly, while the baby cheers in joy at his buddy's effectiveness. Seizing the perfect window created by the distraction, the hatchling lunges with pinpoint accuracy, biting right into the celestial ginseng's branch. With his cheeks stuffed, he chokes a bit, realizing the plant is way too huge, but decides to chew fast to devour the whole thing. Chewing aggressively, the baby tries to swallow the giant magical plant all at once. Feeling the root slide down his throat, he figures that if it is already in his mouth, the situation is completely under control. However, his body reacts instantly, and the little guy starts spasming, shooting sparks everywhere without a clue what is happening. Overwhelmed by uncontrollable energy, the hatchling goes into full panic mode, while chaotic magic detonates all around him. With blurry vision, his consciousness starts to fade, and the former dragon realizes he made a fatal mistake. The tiny bird abruptly stops, completely confused after hearing the MC choking right behind it. Seeing its little friend collapse onto the dirt, the phoenix freaks out and starts chirping desperately, calling out to him. Fighting to stay awake, the little guy curses his luck, realizing that was definitely not the heavenly seed he thought it was. Right before blacking out entirely, he regrets dragging the nanny and the bird into this deadly mess. Suddenly, a strong current of green magic starts swirling around the tiny passed-out body, healing the area. Through the mysterious winds, slow footsteps approach the exact spot where the hatchling dropped. Using a gentle spell, the hooded figure lifts the baby and his crew off the ground with zero effort. Caught totally off guard, the little bird lets out a confused chirp as it floats helplessly through the air alongside the ferry. Controlling the air currents, the hooded stranger evaluates the mess with a calm and hyper-focused look. Wasting no time, the mysterious individual turns around and carries the floating trio deeper into the woods to save them. With a careful motion, the stranger begins opening the folds of their protective cloak. Channeling pure energy, they make a tiny glowing pill float right over to the hatchling's face. The magical medicine drops directly into the former dragon's mouth, who is still completely out cold. Putting up zero resistance, the baby swallows the pill as his body absorbs the cure instantly. As the green energy fades, the MC's tiny body starts gently floating back down to the ground. Slowly coming back to his senses, he opens his eyes in confusion, trying to piece together what just happened. With blurry sight, the little guy tries to identify the hooded figure slowly walking away through the forest. But feeling his strength and mind still running on empty, he is totally powerless to stop the stranger from leaving. The second the hatchling safely touches the grass, the little bird rushes over to him, beyond relieved. The phoenix jumps for joy, rubbing its face against him, while the former dragon asks for a quick second to process everything. Absolutely drained, he begs his little buddy not to cry, admitting he just needs a quick breather. Far away from there, firm footsteps echo through the massive golden hall as the guardian strolls in casually. The blonde stops and greets her guest, noting that it has been quite a while since they last crossed paths. Standing before her, an imposing red dragon stares her down, calling her name with an incredibly deep voice. Agreeing with her, the monstrous dragon confirms the gap really has been quite long. Keeping her cool, Christina brings up the golden dragon's leader, paying an unexpected visit to her lair. Catching the breach in etiquette, she deduces the man already knows exactly what her answer to his proposal will be. Facing the leader, who is now in his human form, the guardian mentions she hopes this topic is worth his precious time. The guest apologizes for his lack of manners, admitting it is a touchy subject while praising her flawless upbringing. Getting straight to the point, the redhead reveals he has full knowledge of the birth of a black dragon hatchling. Caught off guard, the blonde freezes for a split second, stating she had not reported this to the Supreme Lord yet. Lounging casually on the throne, the guest asks why she did not come to him about it first. Defending herself, the guardian argues that the little baby is still way too young for any kind of official introduction. She reasons that the little dragon desperately needs a peaceful environment to grow up healthy. Picturing a drama-free future, the woman explains that the hatchling must gain experience and build his own personality. With a fierce look, she asks Darwin to support the kid and keep the Lord far away from this mess. Analyzing the bold request, the redhead questions if this boy is really worth all this protective hassle. In response, Christina drops the bomb that the little guy has so much raw power he revived a new phoenix all by himself. The guest is floored, remembering that the bird's current generation has not even passed yet, making the feat insane. Slamming his fist on the chair, he realizes that if the Lord finds out, he will brainwash the hatchling to use him as a weapon. With a dark posture, the redhead states that if the child is seen as a threat, the Lord will try to eliminate him without hesitation. Smiling again, Darwin praises the guardian's cunning, knowing she only made the request because she was certain he would not turn it down. The blonde keeps a soft smile, replying that she just trusted his ability to make a smart choice. Already heading for the exit, the leader figures it would be highly beneficial to build a bond between the black dragon and his own heir. Promising to send his son over to help with the training, Darwin says his goodbyes, while Christina expresses her deep gratitude. Waving without turning back, the redhead leaves feeling pretty good, claiming their chat was incredibly productive. Alone in the hall, the woman starts pacing, picturing the furious look on that arrogant lord's face when he uncovers the truth. Looking out at the scenery, she celebrates the fact that, for once, things will not go the way that dictator wants. However, with a sharp glare, she mentally notes that Darwin's slick little plans are not going to pan out either. The blonde remembers that the Golden Clan's sole heir is infamous for having a seriously tricky personality. Confident in her play, the Guardian concludes that tossing the two rebel kids together will bring major perks for both sides. Picking up the pace, the woman decides she has been away for way too long and needs to sprint back to the nursery ASAP. Worried her little baby might be starving, she plans to swing by the kitchen to whip up a massive, delicious meal. But suddenly, the woman freezes dead in her tracks, utterly horrified as she senses an insane shift in the atmosphere. Overcome by panic, she recognizes the magical alarm, terrified that the absolute worst-case scenario just went down. With her dragon traits flaring up from pure stress, the Guardian realizes the hatchling tripped an emergency alert. Without a second thought, she stomps the ground, channeling all her energy to move as fast as physically possible. In the blink of an eye, a massive spatial spell wraps around her body, prepping for an instant warp. Spawning frantically in the middle of the forest, the woman screams for the kids, frantically searching for the former dragon everywhere. Seeing her touch down, the little bird sprints toward her in tears, heart hammering 1,000,000 miles an hour. Scooping up the baby's limp body, the blonde demands to know what on earth they were doing outside the safe room. Shaking with fear, the tiny guardian fairy floats over, holding the leftovers of the plant that caused this massive disaster. Staring at the item, the guardian is mortified, realizing the hatchling raw-dogged a highly dangerous mandrake. She mentally explains that besides being perilous by nature, the local vegetation absorbed a toxic dose of raw mana. Looking at the little guy's cold sweat, the blonde cannot fathom how a newborn managed to dig up such a heavy-duty, century-old herb. Right then, the woman sniffs the air and instantly zeroes in on the source of the intervention, catching a very familiar scent. Recognizing the young dragoness Riz's presence, the Guardian figures this run-in was definitely not great for keeping their secret. Despite that, she lets out a massive sigh of relief, admitting the young girl's healing assist was an absolute lifesaver. Squeezing the baby tight, the woman blames herself for the mess, thinking the fairy's watch duty would have been more than enough. Blown away by the MC's skills, she marvels at the fact that he pulled off a flawless teleport just to go munch on some glowing weeds. Slowly waking up, the former dragon hears a familiar voice calling him a troublemaker. Shocked to recognize the tone, he opens his eyes and sees Christina asking if the little guy is feeling any better. Crying her eyes out, the blonde hugs the hatchling tight and apologizes, claiming she should have been way more careful. Crushed against her, the MC realizes his caretaker cares a little too much, but gets why she was so spooked. Hearing the woman's heart racing, the baby mentally apologizes for going rogue. The Guardian's eyes stay teary, clearly still super shaken up by the whole ordeal. Calming down a bit, she says they need to head back because his tiny body took some serious damage. The hatchling is cloaked in a magical aura, slowly getting his energy back. He reflects that he took internal damage from the chaotic energy, but celebrates the simple fact that he is still breathing. Staring at the mandrake, the little guy concludes that looks can be deceiving and that this world plays by entirely different rules. With that, he decides he is going to have to be infinitely more cautious from now on. Focusing his mana, the MC pushes the deep thoughts aside and decides to absorb all that crazy energy he swallowed. Right then, he hears a soft trembling coming from something fuzzy right next to him. Confused by the sudden sound, the former dragon turns his head to figure out what is going on. He spots the phoenix sobbing endlessly and finds the whole scene pretty hilarious. Patting the little bird's back, the hatchling realizes his buddy has been crying this entire time. Trying to comfort the bird, he swears it was just a minor stomachache, no big deal. Looking at the two of them, the former dragon gets emotional seeing people actually worried sick over him, something he never had in his past life. Blushing a little, the baby admits to himself that being loved is honestly not a bad vibe at all. Suddenly, his eye is caught by a weird flashing light. The phoenix spots the glow too and lets out a surprised chirp. The MC feels something rising in his throat and gulps, trying to figure out what it is. Standing up, he is stunned to realize it is pure purification energy. Confused, he gulps again, questioning how that kind of power even got in there. With his chest glowing bright, the little guy gets absolute confirmation that he is being cleansed. He coughs lightly, feeling the magic doing its thing inside his system. Analyzing the spell, the former dragon realizes the purified water acted as a flawless antidote to the toxin. Super hype, he notices that along with the cure, a massive wave of fire energy just injected straight into his core. Looking at the tiny bird, the hatchling puts two and two together, realizing that little guy was the source of it all. Rubbing his face against the phoenix, the MC praises his buddy, noting that he is way more useful than he originally thought. Back in the massive bedroom, Christina walks over asking if the hatchling managed to get some good rest. He replies happily, while the woman mentions that even though he looks fine, the scare was absolutely huge. Scooping the baby up, she explains the plant only messed him up because he is still just a newborn. Hugging the former dragon, the blonde promises that once he grows up, a mandrake will literally be a walk in the park. With a look packed with affection, the guardian calls the little guy her sweet child. In her head, she is still struggling to believe a baby actually pulled off teleportation magic. Setting the hatchling down, she notes that his recovery rate is also completely unheard of in history. The woman realizes the kid is way too exceptional and pictures the nightmare it would be if the Lord found out the truth. Staring intensely at the MC, she weighs the imminent danger hanging over their heads. Noticing the caretaker's tense expression, the little guy gets confused by the heavy vibe. Sweating bullets, he fears he raised some red flags and plans to use the phoenix as a lame excuse if she presses him. Breaking the silence, the blonde calls out to the hatchling with a very calm tone. Very gently, she takes the little baby's paw in her hand. Without beating around the bush, the guardian announces she is going to cast the inheritance magic on him. Tilting his head, the MC draws a complete blank, having zero clue what she just said. Inheritance magic is an ancient spell forged by the gods for the intelligent beings of this world. It is a concept that directly implants a dragon's pure knowledge, allowing the receiver to instantly unlock new skills. However, the power is entirely dependent on the target's mental fortitude, dropping a crushing weight onto a mere hatchling. The most terrifying part is that the caster's twisted ideologies can also bleed over during the process. The Guardian explains that, because of this, very few people use the technique, and there is an incredibly strict limit. She reveals the spell can only be performed once in a lifetime and asks if the little guy trusts her. Dead serious, the blonde warns that the spell is just as excruciatingly painful and dangerous as it is powerful. On top of everything, the hatchling will have to put his life entirely in her hands. Lowering her gaze, the woman finally drops her guard and confesses her true feelings. She admits she just wanted to let him have a normal, stress-free childhood. The caretaker mourns, saying she only wanted to see him playing around and being happy. Sitting on the floor, she explains there are some things you can only truly experience while you are young. The former dragon listens to her vent in total silence, fully grasping the weight of the moment. From his past life, the MC knows exactly how incredibly rare this woman's warmth and consideration truly are. He acknowledges that reality often manages to be infinitely crueler than anyone expects. Bright things like childhood innocence are easily crushed under the harsh priorities of the real world. By the time you realize how precious they were, the vessel holding that childhood is already old and shattered. Even though she wanted to shelter him, the Guardian made this tough call thinking solely about what is best for the hatchling. Faced with this, the MC decides the absolute least he can do is tank the pain, and he agrees to the spell. A few days roll by and the massive room lights up at powerful golden magic circles. The blonde walks calmly toward the center of the complex magical array. She steps firmly, taking her position to kick off the grand inheritance ritual. The baby feels a chill run down his spine as he notices the shift in the room's atmosphere. Even from a distance, the former dragon can feel the insane intensity of the woman's mana pressing against his skin. Petting the hatchling, the caretaker asks him to stay chill and try not to panic too much. Prepping for the spell, she takes a deep breath, channeling all of her immense power. Glowing like the sun, the woman invokes the magic under her true name, Christina L. Arcadia. The little guy watches, hypnotized, as she declares she will hand over her life and memories. Reaching out through the magical rings, the golden dragoness passes her legacy directly down to the child. Caught off guard by the sheer impact, the MC's eyes go wide as he feels the power rush into his being. The MC braces himself for the hit, telling himself the magical payload has finally arrived. Suddenly, a brutal shockwave slams into his tiny body, making him let out an agonizing scream. He feels like a colossal file of data is being violently force-fed straight into his brain. Enduring the hellish pain, the hatchling knows he has to hold the line because all this power will be his if he survives it. With sheer willpower, the former dragon demands the inheritance to drop the full payload of knowledge. Right after the energy spike, the baby stumbles, exhausted, as he hears the guardian weakly ask if he is okay. Out of gas, the little guy collapses onto the floor, sending the woman rushing frantically toward him. Desperate, the blonde hugs his tiny body, begging her child to wake up. The caretaker coughs from sheer exhaustion, calling out to the hatchling while clearly physically drained from the ritual. Gradually, the MC regains consciousness and reaches out his little paw, touching the woman's face to call her name.